Hello, happy Wednesday. I'm Bev, and this is Erin. We're here with NFPT on their Facebook page talking about nutrition philosophies that are out of date. We have 6 of them for you today. Say hello, tell us where you're from. If you know anyone that's really into nutrition, please share the show with them. They can come and join us. I'm actually going to put it up on Facebook and Twitter right now. And yeah, Erin, what do you think about our topic today?
I think it's a good one. I always like talking about nutrition though, so don't ask the nerd. Like, of course I'm gonna be like, it's fun.
When you have is it precision nutrition? Is
I
that
have
the
precision nutrition level 1 coach and then ACE fitness nutrition specialist. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, Erin's really the brains with nutrition here. Personal trainers are not allowed to really prescribe or suggest. I mean, you can like tell people about like research and what you've read, and you can't really like give a meal plan out or anything like that unless you have something like Erin has, and I do not have anything like that. So I really stay away from nutrition aside from like sharing a recipe or posting what I'm eating or posting something I learned. And so today we are very much just going to share with you like where nutrition has come recently, because it's always changing. So we have 6 philosophies for you that are out there that we're going to just mention why they're out of date in our opinion and understanding of where the industry is. You want to start us off, Erin, with the first one?
Sure. So avoiding fat is one. I think, back in like the 70s and 80s, it was all, oh, we don't want to eat fat. Fat is bad. Dietary fat's the same as body fat. Not really. Not even close, really. And so we kind of, in our understanding, as nutrition has evolved over time and research has gotten better and better, we understand that fat is a necessary nutrient, and cutting it out doesn't do us any favors. Certain fats, healthy fats, are cardioprotective. Sorry, my phone was ringing. Had to silence it. I'm at work, people. That's just how it goes. So yeah, their fats are really cardioprotective. And so when we start cutting those out, we're not doing our hearts any favors, but we're also not doing our body or our brains any favors either. So that's kind of a really long, outdated theory on nutrition is, cut out fat, avoid fat. And I think it all started because if you look at the energy density of those macronutrients, carbs, fats, and protein, carbs and protein have the same amount per gram. So they've got 4 calories of energy per gram, whereas fat has 9. It's got double the amount. And so people kept thinking, oh, well, if I eat that, I'm going to get fat. No, it doesn't really happen that way. I mean, I guess it could if we're going to look at, total caloric intake over a period of time, but eating fat is not a bad thing to do.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah, with the right
fats are important. So.
Sweet. That's number 1. If you resonate with that or makes sense to you, go ahead and put a number 1 in the comments. Number 2, we talked about last week, which is counting calories. And I'm going to go ahead and put the show up in the comments. We just talked about how counting calories can really lead you astray. It's not about the calories, like Erin just said. It's about what's in the food and the densities and the nutrition in it. And counting calories can really just be a problem, because it's like what's in those calories is more important. So if you want to learn more about why counting calories, it's a bad thing. We talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago that counting calories is a good awareness tool. It's a good first step, but we think that it's something that needs to be phased out in exchange for food journaling and more awareness and building a knowledge of how food really makes you feel versus counting the numbers, because the numbers, they don't connect at all nutritionally, really, like when you count those numbers. So check out that episode if you want to learn more about that. And if you like this or you resonate with it, give us a woo and put a number 2 in the comments. Let's roll right into number 3, Erin.
So number 3 is it's all about protein. High protein, low carb diet. No, not so much. The thing with protein is your body can only use so much at one time. So when there's a superfluous amount, you're going to store it or waste it. So really it's like 20 to 25 grams of protein at any one time the body can use. And so it's a really great idea to try to have protein. And I always tell people, think about marrying your protein with your carbohydrates. It slows down the absorption of the carbohydrates. Protein is very satiating and filling, but you don't need a 36-ounce prime rib at dinner to make up for not eating protein at breakfast and lunch. That's not going to do you any favors. So saving it all up, it's metabolically not friendly to do that. And so try to marry the protein with the carbohydrates. Have a little bit of protein with every meal. So for breakfast, don't just have oatmeal, think about that and think about what kind of lean protein that a client can add. If you notice that they're deficient on their protein intake, that's something you can suggest is, I've noticed that your trend in protein is pretty low. Let's take a look at maybe some ways that we can incorporate some leaner options of protein that would still fill you up and still fuel you throughout the day. So it's about 20 to 25 grams per meal. That's really the most effective amount. And that's going to vary person to person, and we'll talk about a one size fits all, but keep that in mind. It's not all about protein. More is sometimes just more, not better.
Yeah, so, that's true. And it goes back to like not eating blindly, not just being like, if it's got protein, I'll eat it. If it's got protein, I'll eat it. Like really paying attention to how that protein affects you. Like, you should be having regular bowel movements. And I think protein, too much of it can kind of like stop you up if you're not having enough fiber. And so, like I know I have to have protein with breakfast, like almost definitely. Like if I have gluten-free pancakes for breakfast, I have to have some type of protein with it, like an egg or, and if there's egg in the pancake, it doesn't matter. It's really strange. Like I have to have like that protein on top of it, or otherwise those carbs just burn right away for me. So, and then I usually have a little bit with each meal because that's what works for me. But I found that by experimenting with it. So
yeah, exactly. So just teaching that mindfulness piece. That's why we kind of have gotten away from calorie counting and really trying to pay attention with the result of a meal and how a person feels after consuming it. But marrying the protein with the carbs and other nutrients is an important way to balance your intake and keep you fueled.
Marrying it. Yeah, make sure you get a marriage counselor for that too.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a really bad joke. All right, let's roll with number 4 before I come up with more bad jokes. So if you like number 3, it's not all about the protein. Put a 3 in the comments. Let us know you're with us. Number 4, we've got 6 tips for you today, is that diets are one size fits all. I mean, it's like, oh, I followed this diet and I lost weight. And then you're obviously inclined to follow it because your friend had success with it. But, there's just, I'm reading this book right now by Louise Hayes. It's called You Can Heal Your Life. And she talks about how like a lot of people go through a struggle and then they heal themselves and then they want to share their method with everyone. And, any method that's like a one-size-fits-all method that worked for one person is probably not going to work for other people. Now, if you're more like, I see Myra Hartzheim is on our, hanging out with us today. Myra is a sleep coach. She does not do one-size-fits-all. She caters everything to her families and caters everything to each kid. And while there are like general principles out there, it's catered. So anyone that's like, follow this diet exactly this way and do it exactly this way, unless, and if they're doing that, then they should be saying like, hey, we're going to follow this diet for 3 weeks. And then you're going to pay attention to how you feel when you add things back in. That works. But this whole, like, the Mediterranean diet is like the end all, or the Atkins diet is the end all, or it's just, it's not a one size fits all. And you should never expect to like pay for a nutrition program and have it just automatically work for you. I feel like any nutrition program out there is about raising awareness. Hopefully nowadays is about raising awareness with food.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, no two people are the same. So we're pretty adrift in our recommendation if we just kind of do a brick and mortar style, here, follow this. And the other thing with those prescriptive type of one size fits all is they're not sustainable for people.
Yeah.
They get bored, or they're not incorporating their likes and avoiding their dislikes because it's prescribed for them. And it removes some of that like thought process and that connection with food that I think is very spiritually important in creating a balanced lifestyle. So yeah, it's not one size fits all. And just because it worked for your neighbor Sally down the street doesn't mean it's going to work for your client. Doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And that's okay. We need to respect our individuality and be okay with the fact that no, I don't like goat cheese, for example. It gags me. I cannot incorporate it into a diet. I don't care how good it is for me. I can't do it. So it's not one size fits all. You need to, keep in mind that you're dealing with individuals and they're going to have individual preferences and they're going to have individual skill levels in how they can cook and prepare food. And you're going to have clients that might not understand the science and art of shopping in a grocery store. And so printing something out for them or just saying, here, follow this book, is not going to be as sustainable or as effective as focusing on a process of change.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, like, it's all about that long-term change, and it takes time. It takes time. Like,
yeah,
I started really tweaking my eating habits towards awareness, I think, oh my gosh, 2008 maybe, I don't know, like 10 years ago. And I'm still constantly tweaking and changing and altering it as I get to know my body better, as I age, as I go through pregnancies and babies and nursing and everything. It's like, it's not just like a autopilot thing. Eating is not an autopilot thing. So cool. Let's roll on to number 5. If you like number 4, throw open number 4 for us. Number 5 is all you, Erin.
So number 5 is taking the focus off perfection and following like an 80-20 rule. So it's better to be, I think it's more sustainable and it's more effective overall to be following an 80-20 rule consistently versus being 100% perfect and restrictive for 3 months' time. Because again, 100%, we're not 100%. Life is not 100%. I mean, like example, this morning I woke up 32 minutes late and like my hair's been on fire all day because it can't seem to get my footing. That's life. You got to roll with the punches. And the same is true when it comes to dietary practices. There's travel that's involved and just being mindful of that 80-20. You can still enjoy food. Good food and food that's good for you are not mutually exclusive categories. I know that there's this perception and this stigma out there that healthy food tastes like cardboard. It can. It totally can, but it doesn't have to. You can still enjoy some ice cream here and there. And I always try to focus on what's in my food and what am I getting from it, not how many calories is in a serving. And it kind of the nitpicky details. Like I like to look at the ingredients, and if it's a paragraph of ingredients and there's carrageenan and garbage in there that I don't really know how to pronounce, probably doesn't need to be in my food, therefore doesn't need to be going into my body, because what's it going to do in my body that I don't know about, because maybe longitudinally no one studied that particular chemical composition or whatever. So it's important to keep that in mind. Like go 80-20. Have a budget for the food that maybe isn't as nutrient dense as maybe like your greens and your veggies and your lean protein. That includes alcohol. Alcohol acts very differently in the body. It's not a nutrient in the sense that it's going to provide you with, all sorts of vitamins and minerals, and it's processed very differently in the body and has quite a few calories per gram. It's 7. So having a budget for something like that is, I think, a really realistic way to live life, and not thinking that you have to be 100% perfect and you can only have a half a cup of cottage cheese and some sliced tomatoes for lunch. That's not a bad choice, but is it enough? And is it sustaining you? Is it fulfilling you? And is it filling you?
Yeah.
So focusing on what you're getting from it and how you're feeling about it, 80-20, much better than being 100% dead on, measuring stuff, and restricting yourself to this little tiny window of food for maybe 3 months' time, and you see some results. But then what's going to happen after those 3 months? Because again, it's not sustainable.
Yeah, I was going to throw that sustainable word out there if you didn't. It's funny because we're all about eating sustainable foods in this day and age. We also have to be into having a sustainable plan. And I think we also have to think of, when I think of S as sustainable, the word stress comes to mind, and we're learning more and more about how stress affects the body. And if you're stressed out about what you're eating constantly, that may or may not counteract the choices that you're making. And even, and the only exception I could think of to the 80-20 rule is if someone has like a severe food allergy or something. And, obviously in that case, like they probably should avoid that at all costs. I think that we got to pay attention to stress. And if you're stressed about what you're eating and it's super stressful, it's probably not doing you any good. The stress that the food because food causes stress, thoughts cause stress, emotion causes stress, air causes stress. And stress is generally, it's not always a bad thing, but if your thoughts about your food and like and you're sacrificing your relationships because you're always like in a manic about what you're eating, which I was in a manic about what I was eating the last 6 weeks because I'm pregnant, but that's a different story.
That's a little bit different phase of life. And there are things that, ultimately you should not be eating and consuming.
Yeah, that was just 6 weeks though. And I told everyone around me, I was like, look, this is how it is right now. I am surviving first trimester. So yeah, and then those of you that didn't know, I'm in my second trimester with our babe. Haven't really announced it on the show. So, all right, let's roll on to our last point. If you liked number 5, go ahead and give us a number 5 in the comments. And I see we've got some different things popping up. I have to eat a lot of protein for breakfast too. No, does not work for all. Cool. I love what you're saying. I have a friend who's pre-diabetic. He lost weight. We went on a keto diet. Fine, but now he's turned into an all low-fat. Salad dressings make America fat. Bacon is the best diet food. He speaks through his program as one size fits all, and like he's become an expert. Yeah, totally. I'm glad you guys are resonating. Myra says amen. So let's get to our last point here. And Erin, I might need some help on this one because it's a little out of my scope, but I will start us off. Number 6 is heart healthy eating. It's not just about low fat. And I can speak to like what my naturopath has taught me is that sugar sometimes is a bigger offender when it comes to heart health. And there are a lot of things that play into heart health. It is not just about the fat. It's not just about like, yes, fat, cholesterol, it's like you've got the fat in your body in the form of cholesterol, in the form of adipose tissue. That is not the same fat that's in an avocado or, they're different. Just because they're called fat, like that's what we named them. They're not the same. And we're finding more and more that sugar, I think, and that's kind of what I know. I'm going to leave the rest of it up to you, Erin.
That's very true. The processed foods and fat, the word fat has a negative connotation with it in general. So when we're talking about foods, like I always try to reframe it to clients as lipids. I know that's a little bit more of a sciencey term, but for whatever reason, we think like fat is bad, and it's really not. Fat is really a friendly macronutrient, and we have to have it. Just like body fat, we have to have essential body fat, or you're all jacked up hormonally, physiologically, mentally. Like I'm not even kidding you. It's necessary. The amount that you need is somewhat regulated. You don't need to be taken in, excess saturated or. And actually, if you look at the updated 2015 new dietary guidelines for Americans, cholesterol isn't even really a concern anymore. It's more about like watching that sugar and sodium intake because sodium is really hard on the heart. It can be linked to high blood pressure and cause high blood pressure. And then when we have that, it creates lesions in our arteries. And when there's an injury, guess what deposits there? Cholesterol and fat and gunk that prevents the engine from running smoothly, so to speak. So that's where we start to see cardiac events. So cholesterol really isn't a gigantic issue anymore unless you're, an individual or you have a client that's has a predisposition to having high cholesterol in a genetic sense. We make it internally and we also consume it externally through food. So, being mindful of that is important, but it's really the high sugar and processed foods that are becoming more and more of a point of concern for dietitians and fitness and health professionals because of the damage that it can do to the body. And I suspect that at some point research is going to come out and also say things about certain chemicals being linked to, X, Y, and Z. I don't know that research is entirely there in a conclusive or causality sense, but I think it's probably going to get there at some point. We're going to start seeing research come out with stronger correlations and associations between certain chemicals in the food, and really over a period of time, we're going to find that it's associated with, I don't know, some sort of internal, disease issue, or maybe autism, or I don't know. I'm just like throwing out examples here. So really, heart healthy eating is not about just low fat. It's about staying hydrated. It's also about getting enough calories. When we so severely restrict our intake, that is a stress on the heart. And I think one important thing to keep in mind is the heart is ultimately a muscle. It's an involuntary muscle. I mean, thankfully, we don't have to think about it beating. We don't have to tell it to beat. It does that on its own. But if somebody were to have severe weight loss because they have restricted themselves so much to this caloric window that's just metabolically impossible to sustain, that the heart will then weaken. It's a muscle. So just like your skeletal muscle is gonna weaken, so is your heart muscle. And that's something really important to keep in mind is when we're dealing with clients that weight loss, they want the weight loss to be the outcome, which is fine if they're truly in need of it. But the rate at which it is lost is a key point, in making sure that they're also not doing more damage than they are good. Because on the scale, yeah, they might see that weight loss come off really fast, but what's it doing to your cardiac system?
Yeah,
that's a problem. And there can be individuals that when they have severe weight loss, that the heart becomes so weak that it gives out. And that's not what we want. So really, heart healthy eating is staying hydrated, getting enough nutrients, balancing your intake, balancing your alcohol intake so that it's not 6 a day. Let's not get crazy. Let's still enjoy if you're somebody that wants to enjoy that. But don't focus on like cutting out one macronutrient over the other. It's just not sustainable. It's not effective. And research has long supported that in the last 10 years.
Yeah, and what you said about the internals reminded me of our episode about the Boston Heart Test. So I put that in the comments. It's a test that looks at everything. It looks at the metabolic factors. It looks at genetic factors. It looks at cholesterol. It looks at the different sizes of cholesterol. So if you want to learn more about heart health, it sounds like, there's lots to know. And we did cover some of that in that episode. So definitely check that out. So if you like number 6, toss a number 6 in there. If you just joined us, you can go back. We had 6 nutrition philosophies that are out of date that we talked about today. And I see Angie says sustainability is the key word. If you can't maintain it long term, what's the point? Yeah. So everyone's on board with us. I'm so glad you guys are up to date. If you found this show helpful, share it out there. If you need help getting other people to understand the direction it's going, because I know there's a lot of people out there that just still really aren't on board with the current thought processes and the science and the research. And I know some folks get stressed out about the fact that it's always changing, but it is. We keep learning, and as we learn, we need to share it out. So we hope you guys have a great day today, and we will be here next week, same time, 10 o'clock. We don't know what we're going to talk about yet. If you have any ideas, share it in the comments. And but we will be here with a health topic for you. You can check out the NFPT Facebook page in a few days to see what we'll be chatting about. And if there's anything you want us to cover, go ahead and let us know.
Yep.
Sweet. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you all later.
Yes, enjoy your week.